These remains may belong to our cousins. That is, our cousins from 60,000 years ago. 6 bones and 7 tiny teeth may change the way we see evolution. They were found in a cave in the Philippines.
We found premolar teeth with 3 roots, which is very rare for Homo sapiens. They usually have 1 or sometimes 2 roots. It's something that you find in very ancestral species, in Australopithecus or Homo habilis or Homo erectus, far older species.
Scientists realize these creatures belong to a species we haven't known about. They've been named Homo luzonensis because they lived on the island of Luzon, far away from Africa, where ancient human species originally come from. How did they reach that part of Asia?
On another site of Luzon, a rhinoceros was discovered with slaughter marks as well as stone tools that date back to over 700,000 years ago. That means that very ancient human species succeeded in crossing the ocean.
Examining their bones and teeth, it's believed these creatures were short. Their curved bones could mean they climbed on trees. It's likely they had no idea that several human species lived on other parts of Earth at the same time as them.
President Duterte responding to those criticizing his decision to allow Chinese fishermen in Recto Bank. He specifically mentioned Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, who said that the Philippines cannot do that because Recto Bank. President Duterte responding to those President Duterte responding to those criticizing his decision to allow Chinese fishermen in Recto Bank. He specifically mentioned Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, who said that the Philippines cannot do that because Recto Bank is within the country's exclusive economic zone. Carpio earlier issued a statement quoting a provision in the Constitution saying that it is the state's mandate to protect the nation's marine wealth in its exclusive economic zones, adding that it is even the duty of the president to direct the armed forces to protect these areas. The president had harsh words for Carpio and members or senators from the opposition as well, who are also criticizing him for his policy.
Alam mo, Justice ka, pero napaka-stupido mo. That is why hanggang dyan ka lang talaga. He's from Davao. Bata doon pa niya believe dyan buang eh. Walang rhyme o reason. Pati itong mga senador sa oposisyon, alam mo, gusto talaga nila ng gulo. Kasi sabi ko, tatanong sila, will you allow the Chinese to fish? Of course. Yan ang pinag-usapan namin noon, kaya tayo nag-uusap eh. And that was we were allowed to fish again. Ito si mutual agreement.
Speaking at the Presidential Security Group's 122nd founding anniversary celebration, the president raised 3 points as he defended his decision to allow Chinese fishermen in Recto Bank. First, he said this was what he and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed on when they met early on in his term. He explained they agreed that in strengthening the two countries' friendship, China will no longer block Filipino fishermen from Scarborough Shoal, which was occupied by Chinese vessels in 2012, and now in return, the Philippines will allow Chinese fishermen in Recto Bank. Second, he said China will not agree to any possible fishing ban in Recto Bank because it's also claiming that area. And third, he cited challenges in enforcing a possible ban on Chinese fishermen in Recto Bank. He said not even a superpower like the United States can stand up to China.
Ngayon sabi nila, you have to ban China. I-prohibit mo. Kung i-prohibit ko, how do I enforce? Takot nga ang Amerika. Ayaw nga mag-confront. Tapos ako bang iposta nila? Gusto talaga nilang mapasubo ako.
President Duterte also sarcastically daring or challenging countries like the United States, France, and the United Kingdom in accompanying the Philippines in heading to the disputed Spratly Islands and face China. Ina Andulong, CNN Philippines.
There is a survey which our previous guest, Director Patrick Aquino, said was conducted, which would try to get the pulse of the Filipino public as to whether or not they perceive. There is a survey which our previous guest, Director Patrick Aquino, said was conducted, which would try to get the pulse of the Filipino public as to whether or not they perceive a nuclear reactor, a nuclear power plant, to be in the best interest of the country. Would you think that if that survey shows that majority of Filipinos are in favor of a nuclear power plant, then that should suffice?
Not even. We have to consider the premises of the survey. It should also, prior to the survey, there has to be education on the part of the people who will be the beneficiary, the end users of a nuclear program or nuclear energy project. You cannot just go out in the streets, ask them, are you in favor of a nuclear power plant, without, for example, telling them the pros and cons, our experience with BNPP, the experience of other countries. Because if you explain that as a context, as a narrative, as an education background, I'm pretty sure the Filipinos won't sign up for another nuclear plant.
So are you saying, Aaron, that perhaps Filipinos lack the kind of information they need to make a more educated opinion about nuclear energy? Is that what you're saying?
Limited access to information. When the primary government agency, the Department of Energy, should be in the forefront of educating the people, not only as regards nuclear power, but to the availability of other energy sources. For example, the Philippines has a potential of almost 260,000 megawatts renewable energy, excluding solar and biomass. If you take that into the entire equation, you don't have need for nuclear power.
You know, the idea, of course, is that nuclear is a clean air energy source. It doesn't produce greenhouse gases, it doesn't contribute to global warming. Wouldn't that be somehow a come-on to the public vis-a-vis using coal or using hydrocarbons, for them to actually say that, yeah, we should have that kind of stable, clean power source? And I'm pretty sure if we trust our own fellow Filipino scientists and experts, that they can make sure that they run the plant safely and viably.
Yes, we in fact trust our scientists, but they are also one in saying that nuclear meltdown may cause the kinds of consequences that have already been explained earlier on when the BNPP project was being proposed. But what should also be added in the discourse is and what's not being explained by the DOE is when we put nuclear power energy into the grid, it's actually more expensive.
Nuclear power will become more expensive.
Yes, according to a study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, comparing the other energy sources, it's more expensive than coal, than RE, of course. But second in terms of cost, second to natural gas. I'm pretty sure if you put that out in the discussion, people would think twice.
So sa presyohan na lang, that there might be, you know, a huge spike in your electric bill if you're getting power from nuclear sources, then people will obviously discard nuclear energy right away.
Yeah, and going back to that being clean, it is belied by the fact that the allied operations to a nuclear plant, nuclear power, is dangerous in considering, for example, the transportation, the storage, the mining of uranium,
and the disposal of
the nuclear waste. Things that should be added into the picture.
Of course.
It is clean insofar as, yes, perhaps there is little to no greenhouse gas emissions, but the impacts, they outweigh the benefits. And this is something that the DOE should seriously consider. Also, if we go into the kind of technology that's now being made available by Russia, considerations such as the supply of uranium, because uranium is not finite, is a concern. Another thing, there will be countries who might not want the floating Chernobyl on ice to be docked on their shores. Because the idea there is for it to be transportable from one corner to the other, meaning even beyond the borders of the Philippines. And that is another consideration.
All right, well, if public consultations are still to be held on the viability and acceptability of nuclear power for the Philippines, I'm pretty sure SEED will weigh in and also make known your own views on whether or not this thing can finally be accepted by Filipinos themselves. Aaron, thank you very much for coming to the show, and appreciate it that you shared your views with us.
Thank you, thank you.
And that's our episode for this week. You can catch parts of the show on iwant.ph and on tfc.tv. I'm Tony Velasquez. Join me again next week when we examine the present and look ahead to the future perfect of Philippine and global tech.
Namatayan ka na. Ito yung mararamdaman na ano eh. Pag personal mo palang naramdaman, magiging akit ka rin sa gobyerno gano'n.
They call this neighborhood Lupang Pangako. It's on the northeastern outskirts of Manila. It's a rather hopeful name. It means promised land for what is just another of the hundreds of threadbare poor communities in this city. And most of the inhabitants here earn a living up on that huge mountain of rubbish that you can see rising to the side of the neighborhood. But this place has also been very badly affected by the campaign against drugs. At the peak in December, they were seeing bodies left on these streets at night almost every night. And that's left people very frightened, very scared to talk about it, even though that campaign has now officially been suspended. Thousands of people actually work here amid these mounds of festering garbage. I mean, it really seems an appalling place to work. The smell is indescribable, and yet for people at the very bottom of the social scale, there's actually good money to be made here recycling materials from this rubbish. But it is people like this who have borne the brunt of the drug killings.
Para sa amin, no, masakit po sa loob namin lahat yung katulad po sa kapitbahay namin, natukhang siya. Hindi naman totally nga gumagamit ng drugs yung kung hindi damay lang eh. Dapat yung sana, kung sino ka po ang namumuno, yun munang unahin. Bakit ang mga inuuna nila, yung mga ugat?
There are some people, though, willing to speak out openly, particularly those who've been personally affected by the drug killings. We're off now to see a man called Angel. His wife Annalie was killed on the 6th of December when she was playing cards with friends at night, and she was shot by a drive-by hit squad. There's no evidence she had anything to do with drugs. Angel has been left to look after 4 children.
After what's happened, what is your own opinion about the war on drugs?
Pwede rin tama sa iba. Pero sa akin sana, ang nilinis muna nila, yung kapulisan, yung hanay nila. Hindi naman sila matitino lahat eh. Dapat yun munang inuna, hindi yung, yun lang yung sa aking palagay. Hindi. Sa iba, gusto nila ito para mawala yung drugs, pero
There is no shortage of people in this community who are actually very glad to see the drug dealers gone. But the astonishing scale of the killing that took place here and in so many other communities has lacerated this country with scars it will be living with for a very long time.